This is Chip Maxwell, and you're listening to the Retire Smart podcast with David Brooks. The Huskers' explosive 68-0 home opener sparks a conversation about leadership, standards, and finishing strong on the field. David and Chip reflect on the excitement of seeing their brand in the stadium, personal family moments, and the lessons in Matt Rhule's halftime speech. Then they shift gears to the economy, unpacking weak job growth, shifting labor dynamics, and what it means for college grads, trades, and the future of work. Well, David, that home opener for the Huskers, that was like old times. You've been a season ticket holder for several years. I don't know if you've seen one quite like that before. 68-0.
I had to look up the last time they'd put up 68 points, and you got to go all the way back to 2012. Yeah. And the last time they pitched a shutout, you got to go all the way back to 2009. Which that actually surprised me that the Huskers have not put up a shutout with the black shirts, even during some rough years, because, let's face it, there's a few weaker opponents that get on the schedule. But, man, what a complete game start to finish. That was a lot of fun, and of course it was all the more special seeing our brand name in the stadium.
What, on that, and we've got a picture on the screen now that really pops on that electronic ribbon that runs the length of the facade of the East Stadium. Are you ready to retire the smart way in our logo? I love seeing that, I admit.
Well, of course, actually the night before our logo was displayed over in the volleyball arena, because we were sponsoring the girls volleyball, and we'll be sponsoring men's basketball. So a great partnership with Husker Athletics is officially started now, so it was really cool to see. And what was really special for me, my son Noah is not that big into sports. He's 24. First football game.
Noah's in that picture there. He's on the left.
So my son Noah actually works for us here, does research for the show, but he's not that much into sports. Like, I was football, wrestling. That was, my kids, they played other sports. My older one played a little bit. Noah didn't really care too much for sports, played a little soccer, but he had a great time. So, and I had my nephew up, who's a general contractor out of Orlando, his first Husker game. So we had a really, really great day Saturday. It was a lot of fun.
You noticed what a lot of other folks noticed in the wake of that game. Matt Rhule's halftime speech to the team went viral. It was only about 2.5 or 3 minutes, but you are a student of leadership. Well, you have to be a leader to build a business, and that one caught your attention. Why?
Well, it did, because that's the missing element. What we have not had here since I've lived in Nebraska, which is 8 years now, we've not had. I hate to say the word killer instinct, but to finish the job, right? When it comes to competitive sports, when you get ahead, you got to learn to kind of press down and get your opponent. Otherwise, that's how we've lost all those one-score games. Of course, we set that crazy record just 2 seasons ago, and one-loss scores, right? Yeah. You've got to be able to finish the game, and when you're get ahead comfortably, what you have to do, especially early in the season at this level of football, you've got to get second, third, and fourth stringers on the field to find out their capabilities. And so sometimes if you do that incorrectly or don't play with the right intensity, you end up giving up those weak scores. And we got 105. I don't know if you know this. 105 different players saw action Saturday, so they got to get some film of actual game film of a lot of young men on that roster. That was fantastic. Special teams did well, right? Offense, defense, everybody played fantastic.
Well, Augie Garrido, who's known around these parts because he was a legendary college baseball coach. He was a regular at the College World Series. And he had some great teams, and often some of their games were lopsided, but one of his mantras was about how you play the game, you play to the standard. It doesn't matter who the opponent is or what the score is.
What is your job and your role on the field, right? Baseball is to hit the ball, right? No matter how many you're ahead.
You got to execute the fundamentals. You got to make plays no matter what's happening. And by the way, when you train yourself to do that, when you are in a tight spot, you can produce, you can deliver, because you got the same standard all the time. It's not like you're trying to find something new in yourself when the pressure's really on. All of these things were standard operating procedure in the Osborne years, and it looks like we're finally bringing them back. Thank goodness.
Well, one of the young men that came to our client night on Memorial Field here about 2 months ago, Luke Lindenmeyer, actually had another viral go because he proposed to his girlfriend, who happens to be one of the Scarlet Dancers, and she said yes on the field. So that was kind of cool excitement. We actually caught that, so we were right there above that when that happened. That was pretty cool. But anyway, it was a great week all around, and a great leadership on display.
All right, into the news we go, David, and we're going to have to talk about labor and jobs, and we've got some rough sledding, some rough sailing here. First headline is from Fox Business. U.S. job growth missed expectations in August amid economic uncertainty. Private sector, David, 75,000 jobs projected, but only 38,000 actually produced, about half. I don't know, maybe is the silver lining that this guarantees that the Fed will reduce interest rates coming up?
Oh yeah, 100%. It guarantees it. In fact, if those of you watching on YouTube, we have a graph. You can see it's like you're skiing down a hill, right? Yeah. The monthly job numbers. Now, just as we got on the air, walked in this studio just this morning. We're recording this on Wednesday morning, Tuesday morning. Sorry, because I'm on a plane here shortly. I got to go to a conference this afternoon. Yeah. We had downward revisions through March of last year. You remember a year ago we talked about this downward revisions were 800,000. We're like, what? Right. 911,000 jobs that they claimed happened in 24 did not happen. Yeah. So, and again, the economy's on way shakier ground than people want to believe. And so now the Fed is going to put jobs way ahead of inflation. So you're going to see inflation take over 3%. It's not going to stop the Fed. In fact, you may see the Fed cut 50 basis points after this number this morning. You heard it here first, so we'll see.
Let's get into a couple of charts that you sent the team. One is about job openings versus unemployed job seekers, and just a few years ago, there were too many openings. Employers were begging. It looks like that has flipped.
Yeah, so it's really a very different world, and after the COVID world, the employee had the upper hand, so to speak, in the negotiating table because there were so many people not willing to go back to work, not willing to leave their homes, and companies that were starting to, expand or grow during those post years were having to take, our interview process was typically 3 to 5 interviews long, depending on the job or role you were applying for here at our firm. We had to cut that down to 2 interviews because the candidate was already accepting another role somewhere, and that was the same across the board for America. Well, now it's flipped back in the employer's, benefit, if you will, where negotiations will be a little tougher because we actually have, this big shift, which does not happen very often.
And then when it comes to the unemployed, you sent a chart showing that the average length of unemployment is getting longer, now 24 and a half weeks. And then I guess it's no surprise, it also causes a corresponding retail sales drop. If people aren't working and don't have income, they can't go out and be consumers.
Well, and what's interesting here, too, is I will tell you in the last year, American-born workers have actually had a positive numbers, but foreign-born workers, the numbers have dropped off the charts. It has a lot to do with all the immigration scares, et cetera, obviously. But the real concern here is when we look at college grads, recent college grads, unemployment is now approaching double digits, over 9% for those that just graduate college in a field that they thought was probably viable. And we're talking about computer science, coding, et cetera. Those jobs aren't there. Coders literally coded themselves out of jobs, and now AI coders take over and just replicate the coding. So, I would just tell you for young people to say, what should my kids study? We get this question, frankly, a lot from our clients. Hey, my grandson's, junior in high school, and what field should he go into? If they're not going into medical or legal, right? They have a desire to go those routes. Traditional college is not necessarily going to be the wisest economic choice they can make. So the trades are, in micro, Dirty Jobs Micro is out there constantly pounding the table saying, listen, you need to understand where the job market's going to be over the next 10 to 15 years. And experienced and licensed and competent tradesmen and in various forms, from journeyman electricians to plumbers, pipe fitters, welders. AI cannot perform those jobs, and robots are not going to be doing those jobs. Someday they might, but if you were, a 20-year-old and wanted to have a way to make sure you could provide for your family, you need to make sure you understand where the economy is going and get into the job fields that are going to pay you handsomely, and they will reward you. I mean, I don't know if you've had to have a service person to your house lately, Chip, but to get a plumber or an electrician to show up, it's quite a challenge. In fact, we are looking, and any good contractors listening right now, my wife has quite a few projects that we're looking for a good GC.
All of these negative economic indicators, our local Congressman Don Bacon is putting them on President Trump's tab. Omaha World Herald headline. Representative Don Bacon sounds alarm on economy. Storm clouds on the horizon because of tariffs.
Well, it's amazing when he says he's not going to run for your election. He's free to start talking in a little different tone, right? And I would just say, look, again, we've not seen inflation come from the tariffs yet, right? So we see people screaming and yelling. And the left right now is running out, oh, they're taxing the American people. What's interesting, Chip, though, but if they wanted to tax evil corporate America, is that not taxing the American public? I'm confused, right? So, again, Don Bacon is positioning himself for his next move. We've talked about that. I don't think the president, even though he kind of floated that in an interview, is realistic at this point. But yeah, you never know. But anyway, I would just tell you the job market has been deteriorating for the last 3 years. This is not because of Trump getting into office. And yes, we have a weaker economy in certain markets. And I've told you, we've been in a recession. We've called it a rolling recession since first quarter of 2024.
Thank you for listening to the Retire Smart podcast with David Brooks. If you want to learn how to generate lifetime income, reduce your tax bill, and maintain your lifestyle in retirement, visit retiresmartpodcast.com. And make sure to subscribe to keep up with new episodes every week. The University of Nebraska and University of Nebraska Athletics, also known as Nebraska Cornhuskers, are not clients of Retire Smart Wealth LLC or Retire Smart LLC. Playfly Sports Properties, on behalf of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, was compensated for this endorsement, as such term is defined under SEC Rule 206, subsection 4-1. For further information about this sponsorship and the compensation details, visit retiresmartnow.com and click on the Sponsorships tab.